I was fixing my lipstick in the antique mirror of the bridal suite when I saw it. The reflection was perfect, crystal clear in the afternoon light. My mother-in-law, Patricia, was standing behind me at the bar cart. She didn't look at me. She didn't check to see if I was watching. She just pulled a small glass vial from her clutch and tapped 3 clear drops into my champagne flute. 1, 2, 3. I didn't turn around. I didn't scream. I waited for her to smooth her dress and walk out of the room. Then I put my lipstick down and walked over to the glass. The bubbles were still rising, innocent and golden, hiding the poison she had just delivered. Before I tell you what happened when she raised that glass to her lips, drop a comment. What is the single shadiest thing a family member has ever done at a wedding you attended? I'm reading every story. Most brides would be hyperventilating in the bathroom after seeing their new mother-in-law try to drug them. But I am a crisis PR strategist. I deal with senatorial scandals and corporate collapses for a living. Panic is a luxury I cannot afford. What I felt in that moment wasn't fear, it was clarity. In my line of work, there is a term for what I had just witnessed. It's called an extinction burst. It's a concept from behavioral psychology, but it applies perfectly to narcissists like Patricia. When a manipulator realizes that their usual tactics, the bribes, the insults, the gaslighting, are no longer working, they don't negotiate, they detonate. They escalate their behavior to a frantic, destructive peak in a last-ditch effort to force the world back under their control. Patricia didn't want to stop the wedding anymore. It was too late for that. She wanted to create a tragedy she could star in. She wanted a disaster. I walked over to the bar cart. My heels clicked a steady rhythm against the hardwood floor. I checked my pulse. 80 beats per minute, elevated but controlled. I looked at the 2 glasses. They were identical crystal flutes, etched with the estate's crest. One contained premium vintage champagne. The other contained a calculated dose of chemical humiliation. With the steady hand of a surgeon, I reached out. I didn't hesitate. I simply switched the glasses. To understand why I didn't just dump the drink or scream for the police right then and there, you have to understand what happened 20 minutes ago. I was in the bridal suite adjusting my veil when Patricia walked in. She didn't knock. She never knocks. She walked straight to the vanity and slid a heavy cream-colored envelope across the marble surface. Inside was a cashier's check for $250,000. Consider it a breakup fee, she said, her voice dripping with faux sympathy. It's a pity payment, Madison, for your wasted time. I looked at the check. It was more money than most people see in a decade. Then I looked at her. You think you can buy me, Patricia? I think you're damaged goods. She spat back, her mask slipping for just a second. A recovering addict will never carry this family's name. I won't let my son be dragged down by your baggage. That was her favorite lie. I have never been an addict. I don't even drink. Mostly because I like to keep a clear head for my work. But Patricia had spent months planting that seed, whispering to cousins and business partners that I was fragile, unstable, and battling a non-existent dependency. She needed a narrative that made me unfit, and since she couldn't find one, she invented it. I didn't tear up the check. I didn't throw it in her face. I just laughed, slid it back across the vanity, and said, I think you're underestimating the cost of labor, Patricia. I'm not for sale. That was the moment her eyes changed. That was the moment I stopped being a nuisance and became a threat that had to be neutralized. She realized she couldn't buy me off, so she decided to break me publicly. She wanted me to vomit at the altar or pass out during the reception so she could play the grieving. Dealing with her daughter-in-law's tragic relapse. She thought I was expensive. She didn't realize I was priceless. I stood there at the bar watching the bubbles settle in the switched glass. She wanted a show. She wanted to prove to every high society guest in Newport that I was weak, messy, and unworthy. I decided to let her have her show. I just changed the starring role. I picked up my water glass, smoothed the silk of my dress, and turned to face the reception hall. The real wedding drama was about to begin. Reception hall was buzzing with the polite murmur of 200 guests, but all I could hear was the static in my own head. I sat at the head table next to Caleb. He reached for my hand under the tablecloth, his grip tight, grounding me. He whispered that I looked beautiful. He had no idea that 10 FT away, his mother was currently holding a glass of champagne that she intended to be my destruction. Then the sound of a spoon tapping against crystal cut through the noise like a warning bell. The room went silent. Patricia stood up. She looked regal in her silver gown, the picture of the perfect doting matriarch. She held the microphone in one hand and the champagne flute, the one with the gold rim, the one she had poisoned, in the other. She smiled at the guests, a practiced camera-ready expression that didn't reach her eyes. Then she turned her gaze to me. It was a predator's smile. Marriage, she began, her voice projecting with that polished old-money cadence, is about partnership. It is about knowing who you are and where you Come from, a few of her friends at table 4 chuckled softly. They knew the code. Where you come from was a dig at my background, my lack of pedigree, but she wasn't done. And most importantly, she continued, taking a step closer to the head. It is about trust. Knowing that the person sitting next to you has your best interests at heart, knowing that they are strong enough to carry the family legacy. She looked me dead in the eye on the word strong. This was the trap. This was the moment she had engineered for months. She had told everyone in that room, her business partners, her society friends, even some of Caleb's distant cousins, that I was a fragile recovering addict teetering on the edge of a relapse. She had painted me as a liability, a ticking time bomb. Now she was forcing my hand. If I refused the toast, I was the rude, ungrateful daughter-in-law rejecting her warm welcome. If I drank, I was the addict falling off the wagon publicly, proving her right and humiliating her. Son, it was a perfect double bind. She thought she had checkmated me. I didn't blink, I didn't look away. I reached for my water glass. My hand was steady. Beside me, Caleb tensed, sensing the shift in the air but not understanding the game. Patricia raised the poisoned chalice high in the air. The light from the chandeliers caught the liquid, making it sparkle. To the happy couple, she said, her voice dripping with sweetness. And to trust, she tipped the glass back. I watched the golden liquid disappear past her lips. I watched her throat move as she swallowed. 1 gulp. 2, she didn't just sip it, she drained it. Confident in her victory. Confident that she was the architect of this moment, she set the empty glass down on the table with a soft clink that sounded to me like the closing of a casket. She smiled at me one last time, a little smirk that said, I win. Then she turned to my father, who was seated across from her, and started asking him about his golf handicap. I set my water glass down. I didn't drink, I just folded my hands in my lap and started counting. 1 minute passed, then 2. I sat perfectly still. My hands folded in my lap, counting the seconds like a metronome. I wasn't nervous. In my line of work, you learn to trust the process. Chemistry doesn't lie. Chemistry doesn't care about your bank account or your bloodline, it just reacts. At 2 minutes and 40 seconds, the groaning started. Patricia stopped talking mid-sentence. She blinked rapidly, her hand going to her throat. Her face, usually a mask of heavy foundation and composure, turned a violent shade of grey. She tried to stand up, maybe to excuse herself to the restroom, but gravity had other plans. Her knees buckled. She grabbed the tablecloth to steady herself, pulling a centerpiece of expensive Lees down with her. Then the medic did exactly what science dictated it must do. It wasn't a polite swoon. It was violent. Patricia retched a guttural, ugly sound that silenced the string quartet. She vomited directly onto the head, all over the silk runner, the fine china, and the skirt of her custom-made silver gown. The smell hit us instantly. The woman who had spent 60 years cultivating an image of untouchable perfection was now heaving on the floor in front of 200 of the city's elite. Mom, Caleb shouted, jumping up. Mom, she looked up at him, eyes wide and unfocused, gasping for air. I don't, she slurred. I don't feel. She collapsed sideways into the mess she had made. The room erupted into chaos. Guests screamed, waiters dropped trays, but I stayed seated for 1 second longer, watching the ruin. It was ugly. It was tragic, and it was exactly what she had ordered for me. I looked up at the balcony where Mark, the videographer I had hired personally, was stationed. I gave a subtle nod. Immediately, the massive projector screens on either side of the stage, originally meant to show a montage of Caleb's childhood, flickered. The live feed zoomed in. Patricia's grey heaving face was now 10 ft tall. Broadcast in high definition to the entire room. I stood up. I didn't rush to her side. I walked calmly to the microphone stand that Patricia had just abandoned. Please, everyone, stay calm. My voice boomed through the speakers, cutting through the panic. I reached into the pocket of my wedding dress. Earlier, when I had switched the glasses, I had seen the corner of a cream-coloured envelope poking out of Patricia's clutch on the bar cart. I knew what it was because I know how she operates. Patricia never leaves anything chance, she scripts everything. I pulled out the folded stationery. I unfolded it with a snap that echoed in the sudden silence. Patricia was still on the floor, groaning, wiping bile from her chin. She looked up and saw me standing over her, the microphone in one hand, her note in the other. Her eyes widened in horror. She tried to reach out to stop me, but she was too weak. My mother-in-law prepared a statement for this specific moment. I announced to the room, my voice steady and cold, but I think she got the names confused. I began to read. Ladies and gentlemen, I must apologize for the interruption. My new daughter-in-law has struggled for years with personal demons. We hoped the stress of the wedding wouldn't trigger a relapse, but it seems the alcohol was too much. Please forgive the mess. We will get her the help she needs. A gasp went through the room like a physical wave. The guests looked from me sober, standing tall, holding the evidence to Patricia, who was lying in her own filth, destroyed by the very trap she had set. It seems, I said, looking down at her, that the only toxicity in this room came from the head of the table. I dropped the note. It fluttered down and landed right next to her face. I looked at Caleb. He was staring at the paper, then at his mother, his face draining of color as the architecture of his reality collapsed. He finally saw it. He finally saw the monster. Then I turned off the microphone. The live stream cut to black. The first phase was over, but I knew Patricia. Even on the floor she was dangerous, and the real war was just getting started. The police arrived in 4 minutes. I had texted Officer Miller, a contact from my days managing a Senate scandal. The moment I saw the vial, he walked in with 2 uniformed officers just as Patricia was trying to wipe the vomit from her chin with a linen napkin. She looked up disoriented, her eyes glassy from the residual effects of the drugs she'd inhaled while heaving. They didn't handcuff her gently. They hauled her up, her silver gown stained and ruining the hardwood, and marched her out the side exit. She was screaming something about ungrateful children and legacy, but nobody was listening. The guests were too busy recording on their phones. Caleb stood beside me, watching his mother shoved into a squad car. He looked emptied out. His hand found mine, shaking. "It's over," he whispered. "She's gone, we're safe." The room exhaled. The DJ reached for the music. Nervous laughter rippled. It felt finished. Then the lights died, not a fade, total blackout. Chandeliers cut, screens went dark, music strangled mid-beat. Emergency lights snapped on, throwing skeletal shadows across the room. The doors burst open. The venue manager entered with security, cold and unapologetic. "The event is over. 10 minutes to vacate. Anyone left is trespassing." Caleb protested. "We have the space until midnight." My mother paid. "The payment was 7 minutes ago," the manager said, showing a tablet. "Card reported stolen. Zero tolerance for fraud." I grabbed Caleb's arm. "Check your phone, no service, SOS only." "Your bank app account frozen," he read, going pale. This wasn't a glitch, it was a fail-safe. Patricia had planned for failure. If she didn't get confirmation by 9 p.m., the kill switch activated. It was 3 minutes 9. She froze Caleb's trust, flagged every family card, cancelled the venue, catering, transport, striking from the back of a police car. If she couldn't control the wedding, there would be no wedding. She didn't just cut the power, I said. She nuked the site on the sidewalk. Caleb collapsed. "We have nothing." "Not true," I said. "She took your money, not my network." I addressed the guests. Calm, controlled, change of plans. "The open bar is moving." I pointed to a dive bar down the street and handed my credit card to my maid of honor. "Tabs on me." Within minutes. Laughter replaced shock. It wasn't elegant, but it was real. I opened my laptop. "She couldn't freeze the trust without your signature." I said, "Let's audit." There it was, an emergency freeze request uploaded that afternoon. Signed by Caleb. He stared. "That looks like mine, but I was at the rehearsal dinner." The signature was traced. Sloppy, she'd forged it herself. "This isn't a loophole," I said. "It's identity theft, federal felony." We went to the police station. Patricia smiled when she saw us. "Sometimes you burn the field to save the harvest." Caleb placed the forged document on the table. "You forged my signature," he said calmly. "To bankrupt your own son." "I protected you," she snapped. "You don't love me," he said. "You tried to own me." He turned to the officer. "I'm pressing charges, maximum penalty." She screamed his name as we walked out. He didn't look back. 12 months later, Patricia's serving a sentence for assault and fraud. We bought a small fixer-upper instead of the estate. I mend a broken bowl using kinyugi, filling cracks with gold. You don't hide damage, you honor it. Patricia tried to break us. Instead, we fused. The cracks became our strength. If you're holding peace together by holding your breath, stop. You can't love poison out of your life, you have to cut it out. Peace is expensive. It's still the only thing worth buying. If you enjoyed the story, hit like and subscribe for more story. Share this story. You are not alone. God bless you. Thanks for watching.